Next up is House Bill 1947, which is a bill to amend and reenact section of the code relating to threats to bomb or damage, false information as to danger, private or public elementary or secondary school penalty. The bill is reported from the Committee for Courts of Justice with a substitute. And, Mr. Speaker, there is a floor amendment offered by Delegate Levine to the committee substitute.
Delegate from Smith, Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move the committee substitute.
Shall the committee substitute be agreed to? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The committee substitute is agreed to. The clerk will report a floor amendment.
Floor amendment offered by Delegate Levine to the just adopted committee substitute. On line 19, after the word person, insert 15 years of age or older.
Delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Levine, speaking to the floor amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very serious statute that's being amended. Obviously, we take bomb threats very seriously, and the current code punishes people very seriously. If you're an adult, or even if you're 15, 16, or 17 years of age, current law says you're guilty of a Class 5 felony. If you're under 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, you're still guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor. The bill would add mandatory minimums to everyone. Now, I spoke with the patron of the bill, and he said that he didn't think a court, juvenile court or other court, would confine someone as young as 10, 11, 12 based on this bill. And so my amendment seeks to clarify that if a 12-year-old makes a joke and communicates to another, could be a joke, that they're not subject to a mandatory minimum, which I remind the body would not just be 5 days, but could easily be a month for a very young child.
Delegate from Smith, Delegate Campbell, speaking on the floor amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I hope you will reject the floor amendment. Let me explain to you a little bit about the reasons behind this bill and what this bill will do. The locality, the district that I live in, one of the localities in the last year has suffered 32 bomb threats over the course of the last year. Now, what that does in terms of an interruption to the school year and interruption to the learning process for the children, not to mention the trauma that it causes those kids and those parents, is overwhelming. What the delegate from Arlington is proposing, I fully understand, and I appreciate his concern for this issue, and I appreciate and know he will be supporting this whether or not the amendment is approved. But the sentencing of a juvenile is a very complex process under Virginia law, and there are a lot of statutory and constitutional considerations that have to be given weight when a juvenile judge sentences a juvenile. I believe under Miller v. Alabama and under Washington v. Louisiana, under our transfer statute, for instance, I don't believe that a juvenile court has the authority to be able to impose a mandatory minimum sentence. But it's the message that we're sending to the community, to all those would-be perpetrators, that we are not going to tolerate you communicating a threat to our children while they're in an environment that should be safe and secure for them to learn in. I hope you will reject the proposed amendment because I think it's calculated to lead to confusion in the sentencing process. For instance, the transfer statute that would allow a juvenile to be transferred under this offense or others and tried as an adult, the minimum age is 14. Delegate Levine's proposal is 15. That's calculated to lead to confusion in the sentencing process. In drafting this legislation, we were very careful to keep it clean so as not to lead to the confusion in the juvenile sentencing process. Accordingly, I hope that you all will reject the proposed amendment.
Delegate from Alexandria, Delegate Levine.
Briefly, Mr. Speaker, speaking to the amendment.
Delegate has the floor.
So I've looked at Miller v. Alabama. It is true that the United States Supreme Court in 2012 said you can't have a mandatory minimum for life imprisonment for juveniles. There are a couple courts in the United States that have said you can't have any mandatory minimum for juveniles. The Virginia Supreme Court is not one of them. So it's an open question in Virginia. I believe the amendment just simply clarifies that a child 15 years of older who would still be guilty of a misdemeanor wouldn't have to have this mandatory minimum. So I urge everyone to vote for the amendment. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.